Welcome to the Dark Nook. I like to make monsters. So, I asked AI what SCP-096 looks like. Then, I sculpted it. In this video, I use wire, aluminum foil, masking tape, polymer clay, acrylic paint, Mod Podge, and a little bit of plumber's putty. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. First, I start with the armature. I sketch out a rough drawing of SCP-096 to get the proportions right. Then, I bend the wire to fit the arms and legs on the drawing. I twist them together. It's a bit messy, and so I use a little plumber's putty over the ends to lock them in place. Next, I wrap the wire in aluminum foil. Then I wrap the aluminum foil in masking tape. This gives the clay something to stick to, and it lets me more easily pose the armature. It also cuts down on air bubbles. With the armature done, I start adding clay. The first layer of clay is just to cover everything over. Then I roll and smooth the clay on the surface and start to add bits of clay here and there to build up some areas and start to define the details. Now, SCP-096 is also known as the Shy Guy, because he doesn't like it if you look at his face. He doesn't like it so much that if you see his face, no matter where you are in the world, he'll come and find you and take you out. Even if you only see a photo or a video of SCP-096's face. But lucky for me, artistic representations don't seem to trigger the reaction from SCP-096. I continue to add details and refine the sculpture bit by bit, smoothing and shaping as I go. I want this sculpt to look like SCP-096 is coming for you, and this is the last thing you're going to see as he reaches out for you. I've been trying a new setup with my lights and camera to avoid the white washout when I'm sculpting with light-colored materials. So the scene may go from light to dark in a few shots. Please bear with me as I get this worked out. Now I start to build up the face. From the description of SCP-096, he has a mostly human face. Distorted but not exactly mutated. There's no giant sharp teeth or huge claws. My take on it is that it's a human face that's been eaten away by frostbite, then healed, then eaten away by frostbite again and again and again. So the features are deformed, scars upon scars, but still recognizably humanoid. I get the rough shape of the hands and then cut apart the fingers and pinch and roll them out into little fingies. I'm not real concerned about the bottom of the hand. I just want to make the fingers thick enough that they won't break off easily because it's going to be using this hand as support. Once I've got the basic hands, I can start adding more details. And yes, those are crochet hooks I'm using as sculpting tools. They're awesome for sculpting, especially with polymer clay. If you'd like to see more about the tools I use to sculpt stuff, leave a comment and I'll make a video tour of my toolbox. I use a flat tool with a curved tip to make the fingernails by pressing and shaping the tips of the fingers. I use a texture stamp to make the skin texture of layer upon layer of scar tissue. Then I make the other hand. At this point, I start to refine the details and blend out the areas I want to be more subtle. Then I do the toes and the feet, but there's really no good camera angle for this, so trust me, it's basically the same as the hands with less pinching. I decided that following the frostbite theme, his nose is just gone, and the skin around the mouth is pulled back and split. I make the teeth separately and bake them first, so they're easier to insert in the sculpt. But they're so small, I only have to bake them for a few minutes. I also make 2 eyeballs. Then I add the eyes and teeth to the sculpt, and fill in around them as I add the final details to the face, like eyelids and wrinkles. Oh yeah, and ears. I forgot ears. I need some ear nubs. Then I smooth that with alcohol, and it's into the oven. Once it's out of the oven and cooled off, I start with a black base coat. Then I sponge on some gray, and a little purple modeling for the frostbite look. I paint a base of yellow on the eyes and the teeth and the nails. Then I go over the whole piece with a thin brown wash. After that, I go back over the teeth and nails with a lighter off-white color. Then, the red mixed with Mod Podge for that glossy wet blood spatter look. I want it to look like he's just ripped through a bunch of soldiers and he's coming for you next. One final sponging of the original skin tone to break up the color just a bit. Then I gloss Mod Podge the eyes and the mouth and any place with blood so it looks wet. Here it is all finished. Enjoy! Thanks for checking out my video. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment.